Back to the channel and welcome to another video. First things first, guys, make sure you smash the like, subscribe if you're new around here, and as always, leave your thoughts in the comments below. And in today's video, we're going to be discussing the Brazilian teenager Estevao Willian, the 17-year-old from Palmeiras, who is getting closer to a move to Chelsea. Deal believed to be around 55 million euros for the 17-year-old. Then he will be joining the likes of Kendry Paes, Angelo, Andre Santos, as a South American contingent at the club, and South American teenagers that Chelsea are bringing the market that the club are exploiting much more. And delighted to be joined by Chelsea fan Jessica from Brazil to get the lowdown on Estevao and in more detail and what sort of a player he is. Thank you for coming. First of all, Estevao, talk to me. What's the perception around him in Brazil? Just how good is he? Obviously 17 years of age. There's still a lot of growth and a lot of development to do, but you know, comparing him to someone like Endrick, for example, is there the same hype around Estevao as Endrick? I've seen some people believe that he could even be better than Endrick.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And as for what people expect, I'll give you three different answers. There's what Brazilians expect. And I can tell you that sometimes in the media, you see the word generational being thrown around quite easily for different players, youth players, especially if you're talking about South American players. But in Brazil, the only time from recent years that I've seen Brazilian fans actually use the word have been with Endrick and with Estêvão. So you're talking about a player that, at least from the football fans in Brazil, there's a huge amount of hope. Let's put it this way, because of the way that he plays, and it's kind of like how Brazilians like to play football, like to watch football. So there's a lot of hype there. The second opinion would be my own, because I tend to be a little bit more reserved and a little bit more cautious when it comes to talent, just because it's often quite underrated, the impact that you have on a young player when you're transitioning from youth academy type of football to senior football. And Estevão is going through that period right now. He's living that moment, and we're going to see how that translates to senior football now that he's playing consistently for Palmeiras. But it's such a joy to watch him. He has been, outside of Endrick, he's probably my favorite youth prospect in a very, very long time. And the reason I say outside of Endrick is not because I think Estevão is worse than him. It's just because Endrick already is like 1 or 2 years in advance in terms of development. So he had last year's, playing with Palmeiras senior side, actually the second half of the season, pretty much taking them to a title. So he already proved that he can do that translation, let's put it this way. The third point of view that I would say, and perhaps the most important point of view, is the point of view of the people that actually worked with him and have kind of followed him and worked with him throughout the academy from since when he was 10 years old up until this point. So you have the youth coach from when he was 10 years old from Cruzeiro saying that he was a future Ballon d'Or winner, that he was close to Ronaldinho, and that's quite a statement to make when you're talking about a 10-year-old. You have Abel, the manager from Palmeiras, the Portuguese manager, who, by the way, works with Endrick, has been working with Endrick, worked with him last year, so obviously knows him quite well. He just said in a recent interview that he has never seen or worked with someone of Estevão's talent, and that to me kind of means a lot. And particularly, and most importantly, for me, there's the head coach, or not head coach, but the head of the academy called João Paulo Sampaio, who recently, this year, gave an interview to a Spanish newspaper, I think AS would be in English, AS, talking about his whole development. And he was point blank asked to compare Estevão with the two biggest, outside of Estevão, the two biggest prospects from Palmeiras, Endrick and Luis Guilherme. And he was asked to compare it, and he pretty much said that the other two don't even come close to the technical ability of Estevão and the impact that Estevão had in the academy in terms of the expectations that the coaches and the people that are within the academy setup had in him. The only downside that he said when it comes to Estevão, it is quite clear to see, is the fact that he is younger. And when you're 16, 17, 18, 1 year, 2 years make a huge difference in terms of your physical composition. So he said that the only thing that he would have to improve would be the physical aspect. And you can clearly see that when you're watching that, you know, he's quite thin. He's, I think, 168 meters. So he needs to like bulk up, as we like to say. But he was adamant more than once that in terms of technical ability, that he was just in a completely different stratosphere. So, as I said, I tend to be cautious, but even myself, and I love youth, you know, following the youth and watching young Brazilians and develop and going to Europe. I really like doing that and following their path. When you look to the quotes and just how highly he is rated within the youth setup, that is a huge testament. So for me, it's kind of hard not to be excited. And as I said, just watching him, the ball is glued to his feet. So he's just the kind of player that makes you feel excited and happy. And he is kind of the embodiment of Joga Bonito. So from a Brazilian perspective, it's just very exciting to have this player coming up.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I've got to be honest myself. I don't know an awful lot about him. I've seen a few clips of him here and there, but let's be honest, anyone looks good in clips. It doesn't really give you a real feel of the player. I've seen him a little bit in a Copa Libertadores. There's obviously a lot of hype around him. What sort of a player is he? Is he more of a technician? Is he more of a flair player? What would you say are his main skill? Is it the main attributes in his game that make him stand out?
I think the fact that it's incredibly hard to pick just one attribute, it's a testament to his talent. A lot of people will look at him and immediately talk about his flair. Obviously, his nickname, since he was a Cruzeiro when I think he was younger than 14 years old, because he moved to Palmeiras when he was 14. So he got the nickname Messinho, a nickname that he doesn't like very much because of everything that it implies. Obviously, he's being compared to Messi, one of the greatest, to many, the greatest player there's ever played the game. So, but it's just a testament to his dribbling skills, to how he, uses his body. And just, as I said, the ball is just glued to his feet. It's kind of outstanding. And I think 9 out of 10 people would look at that and just say that's the most incredible part of his game, just how he manages to get out of tough situations with his dribbling. But for me, I really, really like how ruthless he is with his shooting. He's not afraid to shoot. We've seen Chelsea buy recently a Brazilian player in Angelo, who I actually quite like. He's talented. He has the flair. He's more of a passer, a thinker. But when you follow him in Strasbourg, even though he's having quite a good loan before his injury anyway, one aspect of his game that he's missing is his shooting. He just doesn't shoot. He's always looking for the next pass. And sometimes you just need to have that courageousness and just go for the kill. And with Estevão, for me, it's kind of I don't know how it works, but it works because at the same time that he has the flair, he is able to be incredibly objective. He doesn't do the flair for the flair. He does the flair, and he uses the flair for a particular goal, whether to beat his opponent in one-on-one or to just find a way to get a better position to shoot on goal. So I would have to say, for me, my favorite attribute, as I said, is his shooting skills. He is working on shooting with his both of his feet, and actually he became kind of known to the general population of Brazil in the under 17, I think, championship in Brazil. A final game he had against São Paulo, and he scored a hat trick. They needed to win that game in terms of to get the title. They got the title, and he scored two goals with his right, I believe, and 1 goal with his left. And just it's something that he actually is open about working a lot, how he uses both of his feet. And so, yeah, I know I'm just talking a lot of praise, but I really rate him quite highly. And one thing I know it's not about the question, but I'll try to speak a little bit about it, is people will watch, and you mentioned that you haven't watched him a lot, and you try to watch him playing for Libertadores, and that's absolutely fantastic. I also try to do that when I don't know a player and I see my club interested, and I try to get to know them a little bit. But one thing that I would ask of people is to not make judgments after just watching 1 game or 2 games, for the best or for the worst, because he is 17. So there are going to be inconsistencies. He's going to have an incredible game where you think, oh my God, he's going to be the best player in the world. And he's going to have games where you just like, it's not a good game. And I think that's part of it. So just be careful where you're going for your information and what you're trying to just analyze it. Just analyze the full context of everything that he achieved up until this point, and putting together the context of being his first senior season, the fact that he is finally starting a lot of games. Palmeiras had, I think, 6 games in Brasileirão. He managed to play in all 6, 3 of them starting, 3 as a sub. He played all but 1 games in Libertadores, which is great competition when you're talking about his experience. He played in Copa do Brasil, and he scored important goals. He scored his first goal for Libertadores, his first goal for Copa, which is like the equivalent of the England FA Cup. And, so he's scoring goals. He's kind of growing into this role of being a main man for Palmeiras. And maybe the fact that Endrick is probably moving away in the summer to Real Madrid can kind of help him in the sense of taking, putting him in the spotlight and him carrying his team. It's what I'm expecting more of him. So let's see what he does until the end of the season.
And in terms of it, the player himself, what kind of a player is he? Is he purely a wide player? Can he play centrally in that 10 role? Is there versatility to his game? Is there one area in the front three he shines in more than another? Is he not just shoeboxed in as a wide player? Is there a bit more to him than that?
Definitely. He has played all across the front three, basically. He likes to play centrally or in the right, but he has played for Palmeiras multiple times on the left, both in youth setups and in the senior team. You would see, even in the Libertadores, I think he played on the left. But if on right wing, he's just different. He managed to be a lot more direct and ruthless, and just the way that he occupies the half spaces when he comes from the right, pushing to the midfield. I think it's the best that he can be. So it kind of makes me think a little bit of Kendry, and a lot of people ask me about this because he also would be defined as a right winger, but watching both of them for a very long time, and I think most people that watch both of them will agree with me. Their attributes in terms of quality are different, and they're set in different areas. Whereas I spoke about Estevão being very like a ruthless finisher and a master of take-ons and dribbling and just being very direct and objective and looking for goal. Kendry is much more of a thinker. He also likes to occupy central areas, but he's much more of a thinker. He looks for a smart pass. He picks some passes where you're just like, oh my God, how did he see this? Because you have no idea. And he's kind of, even with his young age, he manages to almost like see the game in a different light. And it's like he moves in a different speed of the game, because he's always like much more like Sex Fabregas. They're nothing like, they're not the same player or anything like that, but just that quality of just being able to read the game before it happens. Kendry has that. So when I put the two of them together, I tend to see Kendry occupying much more of a central role and Estevão being used as a winger on the right. And actually, I think their attributes kind of mesh well together, and I can see them working because of that reason. I remember I was also asked once whether or not I felt that the fact that Chelsea already signed Kendry could be seen as like something that would stop Estevão from wanting to join Chelsea, because he would have to compete with him or something. And my answer before is the same as now, and now I have even more reason to believe in that, which is, for me, is the exact opposite, because Brazilians are dreamers. They don't think of bad scenarios, especially football players. They just they believe in themselves, and they think, even when every logical reason is saying it's not going to happen, they think they're going to go and they're going to earn their starting spot, and they just go for it. And for me, based on what I know from Estevão and based on what I know from Brazilian players, it would actually be quite an incentive and be exciting to play with a player that it's considered one of the best in South America, because Kendry is considered one of the best in South America. And that would be a motivation, playing with one of the best and being able to kind of grow together and to maybe have that leadership role going for the future and creating a great partnership. They obviously played each other in Libertadores. They know of each other, in my opinion. And I'm taking Endrick's side, okay, because for me, he's already moving to Europe. So I'm just looking at players that are currently, I know Kendry is out, but he's not coming to Europe yet. But looking at the situation without Endrick. For me, they're both of them are the two best talents in South America, period. I don't see anyone in South America right now that can rival the two of them in terms of the potential that they have. So I think that's a great incentive. And as I said, they know of each other. They played against each other. They are currently following each other after playing each other. And after the whole Chelsea, obviously, news, they started following each other on Instagram. And I know this doesn't mean much, but it also means a lot because it came after the whole Chelsea business and all of that. So it's just the prospect of having the two of them at Chelsea is really exciting for me as someone from South America that has seen them. And I know it is very, very exciting for people that follow Copa Libertadores, even for people that are not Chelsea fans. If people follow the Copa Club, they talk about players in South America from every country basically in South America, not just Brazilians. They talk about Copa Libertadores and the young prospects. And they have been very open in saying that if Chelsea manages to pull this off, they're going to have two of the best, if not the best, in my opinion, the best talents in South America for sure.
I think it's a massive coup for the club to be tapping into the South American market. I think, you know, in years gone by, these kind of players would just end up at a Real Madrid or a Barcelona. We've seen it so many times over the years, Rodrigo, Vinicius Jr., etc., Neymar going from Santos and whatnot. But how, and we always talk about pathway at Chelsea, development and whatnot. Let's make no mistake about it. There is a lot of players in those kind of positions, not just for Estevao, but also for Kendry Pires as well. The likes of Cole Palmer, Madueke, Mudryk, Angelo, Hutchinson, Nkunku, Sterling, you know, just to name a few. Look, some might move on or whatever, but where do you see, you know, Estevao, Kendry, etc.? Where do you see these guys fitting in? Because let's be real, there's a lot of places there, and they're going into a very hotly contested area of the squad. Do you see a clear pathway for the first team? Do you maybe see a loan to Strasbourg or a loan somewhere else in Europe first? Or do you think these guys are legit good enough to go straight into the first team squad? Of course, you know, a lot can change between now and 2025 in terms of development. But how do you see that pathway in place for these youngsters at Chelsea?
This is like a loaded question. I think I'm also a huge Cobham fan. So it involves a lot of elements. I'll try to be succinct. If I'm ranting too much, please just let me know. I would say right now, looking at the players right now, I think Kendry is ahead in his development. Obviously, he has been playing senior games and he has been playing in Europe, not European, but South American competition for longer. And he is a lot more ready to come into Chelsea right now. So if I had to say, I think Kendry would be ready right now to be part of the Chelsea squad. I don't think Estevão would be. If I'm looking at him right now, I'll probably say he would need a loan, especially because of his physicality. But as you said, he's going to have the whole year to have his development, and I have to see and to wait and see what he does in Brasileirão and how his body develop and all of that. I also think, and this is me being like trying to be very objective, if the club is investing that amount of money on a player at 17, he just turned 17, he was 16 a couple of months ago, it's because they believe in the player. And so I think as far as Estevão goes, I can see a pathway, not because there is one, but because I think the club will make one for him because of the investment that they put in him, if that makes sense. They wouldn't be spending... It's not like they bought him for 20 or, you know, the quotes are 30 plus 25 or something. It's huge number. It's Endrick type of numbers. So if you're paying that,
yeah, I think it would be a record Brazilian sale if the proposed numbers for the deal go through. So it could even surpass the Endrick sale, which would be quite something.
Yeah, definitely it could. I think it would surpass him in like 5 million or something based on the reports, but we have to see like the final fee because as far as we know, no agreement has been reached yet. So if you're asking about, am I afraid for the development? I am, in the sense of when I look back and see what has happened, and I'll give you an example of Andre, for instance. Out of every Brazilian that we have bought so far, Andre, for me, is the one that I said from the beginning, he is ready, because I followed him. I know what he's capable of. I know his leadership, his mentality. He is ready right now. And the club or the manager, whatever, didn't feel like he was and decided to go for a loan, and that's fair enough. But then they chose a completely wrong move without the manager of Forest knowing about it or agreeing with it, and it kind of, you know, messed up his development for around 6 months. So, you know, it makes you wary in terms of what is the plan? Do the club actually have a good plan in place? So in that sense, I am worried for both of them, because I do really believe, as I said, that they are special players. And if we get both of them, we're going to need to make sure that we give them both the right path, the right tools to succeed and to become the players that the scouts think that they can be. But as I said, on the other hand, I'm not that worried when it comes to them, just because of the investment put in both of them. And that's where, like, the Cobman, that's the whole Academy Cobman problem, where, you know, you don't have the same investment in terms of fee. It makes you easier from a financial standpoint, not from a fan standpoint, obviously, to just think of pure profit and other stuff. So the whole pathway for me, it becomes a lot more worrying when you're talking about our academy. And obviously that's something that we have to analyze as well when we're buying young players. And what I will say, and you asked me about our scouting, and I've talked to multiple Brazilian people, I've talked to South American people about the players that Chelsea are targeting now in South America. And it's been pretty unanimous that there's been a shift in terms of the type of players Chelsea are going after. They are going after the right targets, players that everybody is talking about, players that are having an impact in their clubs. Now, you can argue whether or not they should kind of not invest in everyone. Maybe you can argue that it's like a scattergun approach. There are, you know, a lot of quantity, and maybe they should just try to look at Cobham and just go for the very, very best type of Kendry deals, you know, players that are just a level above everyone else. And that's completely fair. And I tend to agree with that notion, actually, that you should just go after the very, very best. However, you know, it's, as I said, pretty obvious that the players that they're targeting in terms of scouting have, you know, they're a lot better than a couple of years ago. Because I will say, when Chelsea would look at South American market before, particularly Brazilian market, I would see sometimes in English media people hyping up players, and Brazilians were just like, why? Like, why? Because, you know, there were good players, but players that maybe we were thinking, okay, a mid-table club from Europe are going to come after them. Maybe they're going to develop more. But players that you could see as some, you know, they're good players, but there is a ceiling there, not Chelsea level or something like that. And so even though I saw hype, maybe in the you know, in English media, British media, Brazilians were fairly confused for most of our targets in Brazil when you're talking about prospect. And that's not happening right now. I think it happened once, and that was with David Washington, not because of his potential, because he is very highly rated, but just because he was second in line. You had Marcos Leonardo first in Santos. He was supposed to be, you know, sold first, and then David would kind of become the, you know, the starting striker for Santos, and then maybe Chelsea could go after him. And Chelsea kind of went, you know, jumped the line from Marcos Leonardo to David, and for that it was like a surprise, not because of the player that they target, but just because they didn't go for Marcos Leonardo, who was older and who was playing before him. So you know, there are a lot of positives to in terms of South America and the scouting in South America to be had when it comes to this new ownership. Now the discussion has to be, what is the plan with all those players, and whether or not did the club need to go after this amount of players, or to just concentrate on the very best. In my opinion, Kendry and Estevão, and maybe, I won't say maybe because I love him, Andre.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's the way forward for the club. You know, it's great to be tapping into the South American market. There's so much talent there. There's so much ability there. Too many times we've missed out on talent from South America, either through not trying hard enough or just not bothering in the market at all. You know, you look at the likes of Caicedo's come from South America. Enzo Fernandez has started out there. You see a lot of Brazilians, you know, go over to Porto and make success of themselves. You know, it's a market that's got so much potential in it, and I'm glad to see that we are starting to do the business. But it sounds really exciting with regards to Estevao, with regards to Kendry Paez, Andre Santos as well. And yeah, I think the club should be, you know, going for the very best that the continent's got to offer, because there's a rich football history in South America. So I think there's exciting times ahead. I think there's a lot to be excited about for Chelsea fans about Estevao. Jessica, thank you so much for your time. It's greatly appreciated. Thanks for all the insight and stuff. Guys, make sure you follow Jessica on Twitter. I'll drop that link in the description below. Smash the likes on the video. Subscribe if you're new around here. Leave your thoughts in the comments as always. And I'll catch you again in another one soon.